Welcome to Millennium TV 24. I am Kim Seabrook, and we are live in New York City, and it is a rainy day. So let's start off with some New York news for you. Fortunately, 1 dead, 2 injured in possible Williamsburg home invasion. Police say 1 person is dead and 2 others were hurt in an exchange of gunfire in Williamsburg. That was Thursday night. A man's body was seen carried out of the apartment building where the shooting happened on Broadway near the corner of Bartlett Street. Police say they believe the man was trying to break in or rob the people inside the apartment, but someone started shooting at him. Officers say that the man ended up dead. A 29-year-old woman was shot in the arm, and a 37-year-old man was shot in the chest. Investigators say it's unclear who shot who. Police say there was a previous home invasion at the same apartment in 2019, also involving the female victim in this shooting. This incident comes as several events are planned for today in honor of Gun Violence Awareness Day. In Brooklyn, Save Our Streets is partnering up with a local school for a march starting on Dean Street. The district's attorney is hosting a resource fair in the Bronx at 194th Street and Valentine Avenue, which will be followed by march through the neighborhood. The Empire State Building is also being lit up orange in observance of Gun Violence Awareness Day and to honor the survivors and remember the victims of gun violence across the country. Next, de Blasio is on right track, but mental health response teams need crucial changes to really work. Last month, Mayor de Blasio unveiled his executive budget for fiscal year 2022, which included a $112 million line item to expand his mental health team pilot, yet to get off the ground citywide. Minimizing the role police officers play in responding to mental health crisis calls is a sure sign of progress, but the fact of the matter is that there's absolutely no role for law enforcement in a truly compassionate and appropriate crisis response system. 18 New Yorkers experiencing mental health crisis were killed in police encounters in the 5-year period spanning from 2015 to 2020, to say nothing of the many others injured and otherwise harmed. De Blasio's proposals stop short of the transformation that needs to help New Yorkers get the right support in the time of crisis. There are 2 key issues that must be addressed if the system is to save lives. The role of police must be eliminated. Beyond the 30+% of calls the city estimates will still require police intervention and involvement of peers, those with lived mental health crisis experience on the team is essential. According to the city, the proposed mental health teams composed of a licensed clinical social worker and emergency medical technicians from the city's bureaus of emergency medical services, that's EMS, and they are to be dispatched to urgent nonviolent mental health needs. Now, whether or not the police will be dispatched is entirely up to the existing 911 call center staff, who are to use their judgment to determine if someone poses a public safety risk. This is a pivotal decision and one wholly inappropriate to embed within the existing 911 processes, leaving the decision to the discretion of the NYPD's 911 call center, and that hopes that the police will be used judiciously and endangers those in need of care. De Blasio's initiative is a welcome first step, but the city must take another look and get this right. Failure to do so puts New Yorkers in crisis at risk of serious harm for police violence. It is long overdue, and it must happen now. And next, how New York City theaters survived COVID or didn't. COVID shut down the Theater Center, the venue Russell rents on West 50th Street and Broadway, for 13 months. She reopened in April at limited capacity, but it could be a while before she can even play Margaret Thorne Brent in front of a full house. Governor Cuomo still requires theater attendees to social distance, which limits Russell's occupancy to about 50%. It's not economically feasible at all, said Russell. She has sued the state and city over the restrictions. As Broadway prepares to go live in September, smaller theater owners and companies are trying to hang on, if they have not already given up. They claim the government has not provided enough support for an industry that adds about $1.3 billion to New York City's economy. That's according to a study in 2019. While many theaters qualify for the federal government's Shuttered Venues Operating Grant Program, rollout of the aid has been delayed, leaving landlords and theater owners under a pile of unpaid bills. Small theaters have to pay rent. Owners of the theaters still have to pay the real estate taxes, said Russell said. So on March 12, 2020, with the coronavirus spreading unchecked throughout the city, Broadway shut all 41 of its theaters. Producers postponed their shows. Thousands of actors, stagehands, and engineers were all put out of work. It was definitely a big hit to the city. Broadway brought in 14.6 million people and sold 1.8 billion in tickets in 2019, according to the trade organization, the Broadway League. Broadway is largely owned by three landlords: the Nederlander Organization, the Schubert Organization, and Jordan Roth's Jumassen Theaters. Small theaters are a different story. Full theater companies own their space and they have less negotiating power with their landlords. So if they miss a rent, a landlord might not be forgiven. The state has frozen commercial evictions and foreclosures since the onset of the pandemic, but the protection could end this summer. Berry's organization helps independent theaters structure leases and find venues. While some were able to secure federal PPP money, many theaters missed out because they often rely on volunteers or part-time workers, according to Berry. Small venues may not have had full-time employees that made them eligible for some of the support, she said. So Broadway and small theater owners are relying heavily on the $16 billion Shuttered Venue program that's set up by the Small Business Administration with federal pandemic funding to help music venues, live event spaces, theaters, and museums. The money was supposed to be released in April, but has yet to arrive. That's a big hit for Broadway and New York City alone. So let's see. New York rail track inspectors suspended for faking reports. 7 rail track inspectors in New York City have been suspended after an 11-month investigation found that they had skipped inspection and falsified reports. 6 of them received a final warning and were banned from performing track inspections for 5 years following arbitration. The Office of the MTA Inspector General launched the inquiry in January 2020 amid news coverage of track debris raining down on cars from elevated tracks, leading New York City Transit to spend $15.9 million installing nets that led the suspect with inspectors were not walking their assigned sections because they could have discovered the loose debris if they had. The OIG also performed an audit to determine how much widespread deception could occur without management's knowledge. It revealed significant systematic issues with how supervisors and manager at New York City Transit oversee the work of transit inspectors. The OIG said in a press release, "It's appalling that so many track inspectors on so many occasions skipped safety inspections, filed false reports to cover their tracks, and then lied to the OIG investigators about it." And that was reported by Inspector General Carolyn Management. They said management needs to utilize a technology that will ensure supervisors can verify when inspectors do their jobs and when they do not. That's a big thing for them not to be reporting and doing their inspections on New York Transit, as many people who take the train on a daily basis. What do we have next in New York City? New York City mayoral GOP debate, Sliwa Mateo square off in second heated affair. After a feisty first debate in which they traded insults and accusations, the city's 2 Republican mayoral candidates, Fernando Mateo and Curtis Sliwa, faced off Thursday night with some heated moments once again. Sliwa vowed to hire 3,000 more police officers, saying that he would pay for such a big addition to the NYPD with what he called a dedicated property tax on places like Madison Square Garden, Columbia University, NYU, and other large institutions. In a similar vein, Mateo said that if he was elected mayor, the NYPD would do whatever it is he can to help prevent and reduce crime. Both candidates said that they will bring back stop and frisk, a topic not popular among the Democratic candidates. The two also said they would have the NYPD's anti-crime unit return. Policing and crime were major topics for the debate, as Sliwa and Mateo both called for more officers in subways amid a surge in crime on public transit in the city. Although they disagreed on where the officers should be, Mateo wants more on platforms, Sliwa wants more on trains. Sliwa offered a dig at Mateo, a former activist for taxi drivers, for not spending enough time in the subways to know what was even going on down there. I lived in subways, Guardian Angel founder said. Mateo replied that he couldn't even afford to take the subways, Mateo said. Mateo also revealed during the debate that he sat down with former President Trump on Thursday. He said that Trump, now a Florida resident, is hurt by what is happening to the city. He has compassion for New York and New Yorkers. But Trump has not weighed in on who he supports in the mayoral race. Mateo wouldn't confirm to us or anyone whether he asked for Trump's endorsement, saying only, "You may soon hear something." And on this issue, on the issue of vaccinations, both Mateo and Sliwa said that they would not require them for New York City school kids returning to in-person classes coming the fall. All righty. And next we have Andrew's Yang attempt at trolling Bill de Blasio backfired Thursday when the City Hall contender was chased away from the mayor's gym in Park Slope by left-wing protesters before he could even speak. So about 10 protesters hoisting signs that read "Hedge Fund Mayor," "Yang equals more cops," and "Don't rank Yang" ambushed the entrepreneur outside the Park Slope before a planned press event, leading the candidate to abandon the presser about 3 minutes after arriving and duck into a nearby subway station. The progressive demonstrators, including activists affiliated with left-wing groups, Our City PAC, New York Communities for Change and Alliance for Quality Education, shouted, "Don't rank Yang, Hedge Fund Mayor, and no more cops" at the centrist mayoral hopeful who made a failed attempt at engaging with them. "I just wanted to acknowledge them and say hello." And they also responded, said when they asked why he bothered attempting to speak to the agitators, he didn't have a response. But his friendly approach to the protesters in Park Slope did not work, and the candidate fled the aborted press conference via the 9th Street subway station, where protesters continued chanting at Yang for a few minutes above the ground. "We thought it would be something of a reference to the current mayor and some of the sentiment people have had about a need for a change and a different approach," Yang told reporters. "It was a reference to the frustration that many people feel with the administration and politics as usual and business as usual," he added. "We needed to make a change." In response to the press conference, hijacking Yang's campaign implied that rival Scott Stringer, the city's comptroller, put the protesters up to the disruption. That's politics for you, right? All right. Well, next in New York City, surveillance city, NYPD can use more than 15,000 cameras to track people using facial recognition in Manhattan, Bronx, and Brooklyn. Pay attention, guys, all right? The New York City Police Department has the ability to track people in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and the Bronx by running images from 15,280 surveillance cameras into invasive and discriminatory facial recognition software. A new Amnesty International investigation reveals today. Thousands of volunteers from around the world participated in this investigation, tagging 15,280 cameras at intersections across Manhattan. That's like 3,500. Brooklyn has 8,200 and the Bronx 34. Combined, the three boroughs account for almost half of the intersection. 40% in New York City, constituting a vast surface area of surveillance. This sprawling network of cameras can be used by police for invasive facial recognition and risk turning New York into an Orwellian surveillance city. You are never anonymous, whether you're attending a protest, walking to a particular neighborhood, or even just grocery shopping. Your face can be tracked by facial recognition technology using imagery from thousands of camera points across New York. East New York and Brooklyn, an area that is 54% black, 30% Hispanic, and 8% white, according to the latest census data, was found to be the most surveilled neighborhood in all three boroughs, with an alarming 577 cameras found at intersections. Facial recognition technology threatens the right to protest and risk supercharging racist policing. NYPD has used facial recognition technology in 22,000 cases since 2017. When camera imagery is run through FRT, the NYPD is able to track every New Yorker's face as they move through the city. FRT works by comparing camera imagery with millions of faces stored in its databases, many scraped from sources including social media, without users' knowledge or consent. The technology is widely recognized as amplifying racially discriminatory policing and can threaten the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and privacy. And on that note, we're going to be right back on Millennium TV 24. I am Kim Seabrook.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV. Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
And welcome back to Millennium TV 24. I'm Kim Seabrook and back with your top news. We have one man dead during an arrest attempt in Minneapolis. A man was killed Thursday when authorities who were part of a task force that included U.S. Marshals fired their weapons after he allegedly displayed a handgun in Minneapolis' uptown neighborhood. The U.S. Marshals said that the shooting happened shortly after 2 p.m. And that was Thursday, 2 p.m. The U.S. Marshals said preliminary information indicates task force members were attempting to arrest a man wanted on a state warrant for being a felon in possession of a firearm. The man, who was in parked car, didn't comply with law enforcement and produced a handgun, resulting in task force members firing upon the subject. The U.S. Marshals said in a statement, task force members attempted life-saving measures, but he died at the scene. It was not clear how many law enforcement officers fired their weapons, but a spokeswoman with the U.S. Marshals said the U.S. Marshals led the task force, which is comprised of several agencies. Other agencies with personnel on the scene at the time of the shooting included sheriff's offices from Hennepin, Anoka, and Ramsey counties, the Minnesota Department of Corrections, and the Department of Homeland Security. The U.S. Marshals said a female who was in the vehicle was treated for minor injuries due to glass debris. And that's that for that news. And next we have a heart reaction probe as possible rare vaccine link in teens. Health authorities are trying to determine whether heart inflammation that can occur along with many types of infections could also be a rare side effect in teens after young adults after the second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. An article on 7 U.S. teen boys in several states published Friday in Pediatrics is amongst the latest reports of heart inflammation discovered after the COVID-19 vaccination, though a link to the vaccine has not been proven. But the boys aged 14 to 19 received Pfizer shots in April or May and developed chest pain within a few days. Heart imaging tests showed a type of heart muscle inflammation called myocarditis, and none were critically ill. All were healthy enough to be sent home after 2 to 6 days in the hospital and are doing pretty well, said Dr. Jaggi, an Emory University infectious disease specialist who also was there on the scene helping the patients. She said more follow-up is needed to determine how the 7 fared, but that is likely the heart changes were temporary. Only one of the 7 boys in the pediatrics report had evidence of a possible previous COVID-19 infection, and doctors determined none of them had a rare inflammatory condition linked with the coronavirus. The cases echo reports from Israel and young men diagnosed after receiving Pfizer shots. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention alerted doctors last month that it was monitoring a small number of reports of heart inflammation in teens and young adults after mRNA vaccines, the kind made by Pfizer and Moderna. The CDC hasn't determined if there's really a link to the shots and continues to urge that everyone 12 and older get vaccinated against COVID-19, which is far riskier than the vaccine. The Pfizer vaccine is available to those as young as 12. The Moderna shot remains cleared only for adult use. And next we have barriers removed and no one goes up, and that's at the George Floyd Square. Crews on Thursday removed the concrete barriers that block traffic at a Minneapolis intersection where a memorial to George Floyd was assembled after his death last year. But community activists quickly put up makeshift barriers and resumed chanting the name of the man whose killing galvanized the racial justice movement. It took the crews less than 4 hours to clear the barriers, artwork, flowers, and other items from 38th Street and Chicago Avenue, where Floyd was killed, and formerly known as George Floyd Square. City spokeswoman Sarah McKenzie said a fifth sculpture, which stands several feet tall, will remain. The city said that the effort was led by a community group known as Agape, and several city departments were involved. The intersection had been closed to traffic since Floyd's death in police custody on May 25, 2020, but some residents and businesses expressed frustration that it had been closed for too long. Traffic briefly flowed through the intersection Thursday morning after the concrete barriers were removed, but community members quickly erected new makeshift barriers. Dozens of people gathered near the intersection, singing, chanting Floyd's name, and giving speeches, expressing frustration and urging people to continue organizing. Frey and other city leaders pledged to reopen the intersection, but activist leaders said they wouldn't step aside unless the city met their 24 demands. And among them, recall the county prosecutor, fire the head of the state's criminal investigative agency, and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on programs to create jobs, combat racism, and support affordable housing. Those are very important things, and I hope that they can get everything that they request in the name of George Floyd. Delaware man kills himself after shooting 3 officers. A Delaware man who shot 3 officers responding to a domestic violence call has died of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Authorities said on Thursday, Wilmington police said officers went to an apartment in northwest Wilmington about 9:30 p.m. Wednesday in response to a 911 call. As the officers entered the apartment, Bernard Goodwin, 31, had begun shooting at them, striking all 3, authorities said in a news release. The 3 officers were transported to the hospital in stable condition. 1 was treated and released, and 2 of the officers have been with the department since 2014, and the 3rd since 2018. With help from several local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies, police established a perimeter around the apartment building and tried over the course of about 12 hours to negotiate Goodwin's surrender. When officers made entry into the room where he was holed up Thursday, and they found him dead with an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Goodwin's body was taken to the medical examiner's office. Police said that the gun he used was recovered at the scene. And residents of a 20-block area around the apartment building were told to shelter in place as dozens of police cars, fire trucks, and a SWAT team converged on the scene Wednesday night. All right. Next in news, we have, oh, this is very, very interesting. As I was looking up this news earlier, then audio was cut in a speech on Black people's role in Memorial Day. Organizers of a Memorial Day ceremony, they turned off a speaker's microphone when the former U.S. Army officer began talking about how freed Black slaves had honored fallen soldiers soon after the Civil War. Retired Army Lieutenant Bernard Kempter said he included the story in his speech because he wanted to share the history of how Memorial Day originated. But organizers of this ceremony in Hudson, Ohio, said that part of the speech was not relevant to the program's theme of honoring the city's veterans. Cindy Suchin, chair of the Memorial Day Parade Committee and president of the Hudson American Legion Auxiliary, said it was either she or Jim Garrison, adjutant of the American Legion Post 464, who turned down the audio. The Ohio American Legion said Thursday that it was investigating. The American Legion deplores racism and reversed the Constitution. The organization's national commander, James W. Bill Oxford, said in a statement, "We salute LTC Kempter's service and his moving remarks about the history of Memorial Day and the important role played by Black Americans in honoring our fallen heroes. We regret any actions that have been taking place that detracts from the important message." In the days before the ceremony, Suchan said that she reviewed the speech and asked Kempter to remove certain portions. Kempter said he didn't see the suggested changes in time to rewrite the speech and talked with a Hudson public official who told him not to change it. So Kempter said he was disappointed that the organizers silenced 2 minutes of his 11-minute speech, during which he talked about how former slaves and free Black men exhumed the remains of more than 200 Union soldiers from a mass grave in Charleston, South Carolina, and gave them a proper burial. "This is not the same country I fought for," said Kempter, who spent 30 years in the Army and served in the Persian Gulf War. The decision to turn off the audio disrespected Kempter and all the veterans, Hudson's mayor and city council said in a statement, which also said that the city is committed to addressing issues of systematic racism and intolerance. "Veterans have done everything we asked for of them during their service to this country, and this tarnished what should have been a celebration of their service." That was very, very disrespectful. Hopefully everything gets resolved and they pay the price for what was done. Next, we have a very, very strong-willed woman. Dallas High School valedictorian delivers abortion rights call. A Dallas High School valedictorian scrapped a speech approved by her school, her school administrators, and delivered an abortion rights call in its place. Paxton Smith, the 2021 valedictorian at Lake Highlands High School, submitted to school officials an address on the effect of the media of young minds. But when she spoke at Sunday's graduation ceremony, she talked of what she called a war on the rights of her body and those of other girls and women by the Heartbeat Bill, signed into law by Texas Governor Greg Abbott a week and a half before. "I cannot give up this platform to promote complacency and peace when there is a war on my body and a war on my rights. A war on the rights of your mothers, a war on the rights of your sisters, a war on the rights of your daughters. We cannot stay silent," she told her class. The new law outlaws without exception any abortion after a first heartbeat can be detected. That could come as early as 6 weeks after conception, when many women could be unaware that they are even pregnant. The law also would allow anyone to sue a Texas abortion provider or anyone who helps someone get an abortion for as much as $10,000. The law would take effect in September, but federal courts have mostly blocked states from enforcing similar measures. "I have dreams and hopes and ambition. Every girl graduating today does. We have spent our entire lives working towards our future, and without our input and without our consent, our control over that future has been stripped away from us. I am terrified that if my contraceptives fail, I am terrified that if I am raped, then my hopes and aspirations and dreams and efforts for my future will no longer matter. I hope that you can feel how gut-wrenching that is. I hope that you can feel how dehumanizing it is to have the autonomy over your own body taken from you, she said. Smith, who plans to study the music business at the University of Texas at Austin, said Wednesday that she had already submitted her original speech to school officials and was trying to finish an end-of-the-year project in the school's music room when she decided to scrap it and say what she wanted to say. My name is Kim Seabrook. We are going to go into a commercial break. You are watching Millennium TV 24 News.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV. Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Millennium TV 24. I am Kim Seabrook. And next in our segment, we have global news. Vietnam to test high-risk groups in largest city. Vietnam plans to test high-risk groups in its largest city for the coronavirus and imposed more restrictions Monday to deal with a growing COVID-19 outbreak. People in Ho Chi Minh City are only allowed to leave home for necessary activities, and public gatherings of more than 10 people are banned for the next 2 weeks, the government announced. Prior to the order, the city, also Vietnam's economic hub, shut down non-essential business last Thursday when cases started to increase. Vietnam news agency said that the city authority is planning to test high-risk groups and population of 9 million with a testing capacity of 100,000 samples a day. They also stated that the police have filed a case Sunday against the couple who had a Protestant church mission for spreading dangerous infectious diseases, citing poor health protocols applied at the premises. At least 145 cases of coronavirus infections have been reported with links to the Revival Ecclesia Mission, a Protestant sect, and the city district of Go Vap, where the church is based, has been locked down. Vietnam has since banned all religious events nationwide. The newspaper said church followers gathered in small space for singing and chanting without proper distancing and mask wearing. Ho Chi Minh City police said that the mission has 48 registered members. The report said that the husband and wife accused in the case were responsible for leading and organizing activities at the church. They were not identified and are not under arrest. Since the end of April, a surge in COVID-19 has spread to 31 municipalities and provinces in Vietnam with over 4,000 cases, almost double that total number that the country reported since the beginning of the pandemic. Some recent patients in Vietnam were infected with a hybrid of the virus variants first found in India and the UK. The health minister said that Saturday. Nguyen Long said that hybrid might spread more easily and could be responsible for Vietnam's recent surge. Viruses often develop small genetic changes as they reproduce, and new variants of the coronavirus have been seen almost since it was first detected in China in late 2019. The World Health Organization categorized the UK and the Indian variants along with 2 others that was first found in South Africa and Brazil as variants of concern. because they appear to be more contagious. Vietnam has vaccinated 1 million people with AstraZeneca shots, and it has a deal with Pfizer for 30 million doses to be delivered later this year. It is also in talks with Moderna that it would give enough shots to fully vaccinate 80% of its 96 million people. And next in Syria, they has likely used chemical weapons 17 times. The head of the International Chemical Weapons Watchdog told the UN Security Council that its experts have investigated 77 allegations against Syria and concluded that in 17 cases, chemical weapons were likely or definitely used. Fernando Arias called it a disturbing reality that 8 years after Syria joined the Chemical Weapons Convention, which bans the production or use of such weapons, many questions remain about its initial declaration of its weapons, stockpiles, and precursors, and its ongoing program. He said Thursday that the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons will be taking up a new issue at its next consultations with Syria. The presence of a new chemical weapon agents found sample collected in large storage containers in September 2020. The Syrian government that he intended to send an OPCW team to look into this issue from May 18th to June 1st and requested visas but never got a response. He said he informed Damascus he was postponing the arrival to May 28th. U.S. Deputy Ambassador Richard Mills said no amount of disinformation espoused by Syria and its very small number of supporters can negate or diminish the credibility of the evidence that has been presented to us by the OPCW. The Assad regime, supported by Russia, continues to ignore calls from the international community to fully disclose and verifiably destroy its chemical weapons program. That's what Mills said. And without accountability for the atrocities committed against the Syrian people, lasting peace in Syria will remain out of reach. The U.S. once again calls for justice and accountability as critical components to help move Syria towards a political resolution to the conflict. And next, 3 killed when gas cylinder explodes at Baghdad restaurant. An explosion at a crowded restaurant in a northwestern Baghdad neighborhood killed 3 people and injured 16 Thursday evening. A military also stated that a gas cylinder exploded at the restaurant in the city's Kamdia district. It reported multiple casualties without providing an immediate breakdown. The 2 health officials said some of the injured were in critical condition. They spoke on conditions of anonymity in line with regulations. Explosions in the Iraqi capital were once almost daily occurrences, but have become less frequent in the past few years, particularly following the defeat of the Islamic State group in 2017. But in January, twin suicide bombings ripped through a busy market in the Iraqi capital, killing more than 30 people and wounding dozens. And next we have why Nigeria schools are, this is very good. Why Nigeria schools are abduction targets. Gunmen have attacked another school in northern Nigeria, this time grabbing children as young as 3 before abandoning the youngest ones in a forest when they could not keep up with the group on foot. The kidnappings at the Salihu Tanko Islamic School in Nigeria, stated on Sunday, marked the latest student abductions carried out for ransom this year in the north. Some victims have been university students, but others, like the children this week, are actually elementary school age. After one harrowing abduction, the kidnappers killed 5 students from Greenfield University in Kaduna State after their parents failed to meet hostage demands. But here's a closer look at the mounting crisis in Africa's most populous nation, which is fueling criticism of the government's response. Nigerian authorities so far have only blamed bandits for carrying out the latest wave of kidnappings in the north. Some believe they are former cattle herders who have developed in well-organized armed groups, specializing in abduction for ransom. The kidnappers behind the Greenfield University attack earlier this month released a video that the students they were holding hostage, but those responsible did not identify themselves. A ransom was demanded, but the bandits did not outline any extremist beliefs. Although authorities deny paying ransoms, the government is often known to enter lengthy negotiations with armed groups after mass abductions of school children. When the children regain their freedom, authorities often claim that they were rescued by the military or that the captives were released voluntarily. But many Nigerians do not believe these accounts, and media outlets have reported huge sums of money being paid as ransom for the release of school children, including the Chibok schoolgirls. Some senior Boko Haram commanders are said to have been released from prison as part of the deal to free the Chibok girls. The government has denied these allegations, but there are fears many parents will not withdraw their children from schools in the face of growing insecurity. The states in northern Nigeria already have the lowest rates of literacy in the country, and the spate of recent abductions have seriously affected the government's efforts to encourage parents to send their children to school. And that's going on in Nigeria. And next, we have sports and basketball. Anthony Davis managed less than 5.5 minutes in his return to the Lakers starting lineup Thursday night before leaving in clear pain from his growing injury as Los Angeles faced playoff elimination in Game 6 of its first round series against the Phoenix Suns. Davis missed the second half of Game 4 and all of Game 5 after the 8-time All-Star injured his groin last weekend at Staples Center. The defending NBA champion Lakers lost both games to fall to a 3-2 series deficit and the brink of an early postseason exit. And next, the Nuggets overcome injuries to reach Western Conference semis with several key injuries. The Denver Nuggets tuned out the skeptics heading into the playoffs. Third-seeded Denver bested the Portland Trailblazers in 6 games to survive the first round and advance to the Western Conference semifinals. They'll play the Phoenix Suns, who were actually eliminated the defending champion Los Angeles Lakers in 6 games. Jokic had 36 points in Denver's series, clinching 125-115 victory over 6-seeded Portland on Thursday night. The Nuggets trailed by 14 points in the third quarter, but rallied down the stretch, outscoring Portland 28-14 in the final period. Porter came on late in the series with 26 points in each of the last 2 games. Morris was key of the bench with 22 points and 9 assists in Game 6 after finishing 28 in Game 5. Gordon acquired from Orlando in a trade at the deadline hit a corner 3-pointer, and that all but sealed Thursday's win. Game 1 against the Suns is set for Monday in Phoenix. The second-seeded Sun won their first playoff series since 2010, eliminating the defending NBA champion Los Angeles Lakers with a 113-100 victory in Game 6 on Thursday nights. That's your news and sports. And last but not least, we're going to head it off with community news. And this time I have only information for the Bronx, and the Bronx is doing some major things this weekend. Today is Friday, and of course it's rainy, but I hear we're going to have a nice sunny weekend. So go out and support our community. So here's what we got. This Saturday, let's see what's going on. We have a few events actually. So let's start with the Mapes Community Cleanup. The cleanup day in the Bronx corner of Mapes and 180th. They're going to do trash pickup, beautify tree peats, and sidewalk cleanup from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Stephanie, aka as Little Mayor, organized this community cleanup event with the Mary Mitchell Foundation. So if anyone is interested, call 347-391-8097. Again, that's 347-391-8097. And also, just to let you know, your high school students will receive service credit as well. And next in the Bronx, we have also on Saturday, June 5th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. is First Saturdays at the Footway and Concrete Plant Park. And that was an abandoned space, but thanks to some young group of people and the community, it turned into a park in 2009. About 2018, Foodway and Concrete Friends, which is a collective of Bronx residents who volunteered their time to advocate and activate the park to ensure that the programs that are happening there will actually put their community first. A Foodway is the first project of this kind in the city. It's a publicly grown edible garden which allows community members to have access to herbs, medicinal edible plants, and traditional fruits. That's a beautiful thing. It's supported by Bronx River Alliance, New York City Parks, and community members. There are also organizations like the Point CDC, YMPJ, and more who have had a tremendous impact on this space. They have been able to host events like yoga, cooking workshops, art demos, and so much more. And guess what? They're all free. Yes. So part of this weekend's event will also be a relaunch of the mural along Westchester Avenue that depicts community members and how they enjoy and use Concrete Plant Park. At one point, these faces are actual members of the community, but it was defaced last year, but was able to collaborate with everyone and replace 50% of the panels. Concrete Friends is a volunteer-led grassroots group of people that support and activate the space, and most importantly, they ensure that the community voices are heard. So thank you to the other organizations who have supported them, which again are the Point CDC, NYC Parks, YMCJ, and Bronx River Alliance. For more information, follow Concrete Friends on IG, or you can call 718-542-4284. Again, that's 718-542-4284. That is tomorrow, Saturday, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And last but not least, tonight. I know it's raining, but they said rain or sun that they're going to have this event. The Office of the Bronx District Attorneys is going to go on until 8 p.m. this evening. The Darcel Clark invites you to join from 4 to 8 at a march to end gun violence and a resource fair on jobs, education, re-entry, healthcare, and fun activities for the children. March begins at Slattery Park, which is 231 East 183rd, and ends at 194th and Valentine Avenue, with a special guest performance by Little Lex, who is an advocate for bullying and gun violence. And last but not least, in community news, Saturday again, tomorrow, June 5th, from 11 to 3, Families for Change will be held at Pontiac Park at Jackson Avenue between 151st and 149th. There will be refreshments, music, raffles, motivational speeches, and much, much more. Major respect to Guns Down Life Up, an organization based out of Lincoln Hospital who is out there every day helping the community stand against gun violence. They are out here working every day with the kids, mentoring, and helping them stay off the streets. So the people who are active voice in the community, I must name them, are James Dobbins, John King, Erica Lee, Marla Abarca, Cartier Conway, whose son was actually shot in his head 2 years ago and thankfully survived. And last but definitely not least, one of the hardest working women around, Maria Lopez. This is Kim Seabrook. I'm with Millennium TV 24 News, and it has been great. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for tuning in.